Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on this episode of the Real Estate Podcast. I am very excited about our guest that we have with us today. Today, we have Nishika Green, who is our broker, our leader out in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. And Nishika has a wealth of information for us about a topic that I think can generate business for a lot of you. And we're going to call it There's Riches in Niches. And love to have Nishika just dig right in. Tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in real estate and give us a little bit of your background.
For sure. Thank you for having me, Todd. It's great to be here on the podcast today. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Nishika Green. I've been in real estate maybe 25 years this summer. I got started in the summer of 2000, looking to invest in real estate. I somehow thought I needed to get a real estate license. So I went to a 7-day crash course in real estate. I got a license and found my first brokerage looking to specialize in investment properties. So I got started selling HUD homes, had a really successful early career, became one of NAR's, the National Association of Realtors, 30 under 30. And so had some really great success, started my own small brokerage before I relocated to Florida. And it's been a lot of fun it'll be 25 years this summer, in the real estate industry.
That's great. That's awesome. And you are such a phenomenal leader for us out on the East Coast. We appreciate everything you're doing because you also oversee almost everything on the East Coast, Atlanta, Florida, et cetera, too. So great job and thank you for all of that. But let's dig into you've surrounded yourself with a lot of top agents. You've seen a lot of success, not just in your own business, but in agents around you that you support and lead and also that you work with and just that you rub shoulders with. And I know that you have observed success in different ways and, and being the professional that you are, you're always like me, you're like, what's driving that success? What did they do? And what are they doing that's different? And that's where you've seen a lot of success with agents focusing and focusing on niches and specifics and being more focused rather than being I don't know, all over the board. Can you give us a little bit? What does niches and riches mean to you?
To me,
Or
it
riches and
means
niches. Sorry, riches and niches. I keep saying it, backwards.
And no, it's all good. It's the same. The
Yeah,
niches do have riches in them, so it
there
works
you go.
both ways for sure. I have had the honor to support some amazing agents from Maine down to Florida and even across the country over my time in real estate. And some of the patterns I've seen for those who are really successful, who are really focused on not only delivering value to their clients, buyers and or sellers, but what I see is their investment in our industry, right? Where they are often involved on a local level, be it with the board, but and with their brokerage, they're engaged in the trainings. They're coming out to events. They are plugged in, as you might say.
Right.
But where those riches really show up in their niches are the patterns around really specializing versus being a generalist. They really look for opportunities to, when they're supporting those clients, look for ways to go above and beyond just based on their specialization in that area, right? The things that they know that maybe another colleague in the area wouldn't know because that isn't quite their jam. It isn't their specialty.
Right.
So I've really seen successful agents do well when they specialize.
So our audience obviously is made up of other real estate agents, agents here at HomeSmart, as well as agents maybe not with HomeSmart, but just who want to grow their business. They want to serve more buyers, more sellers. So what are some of the tactics that you would give or advice that you would give an agent who wants to tap into this riches and niches concept?
There's so much to kind of tackle there, but to simplify it, to kind of give them some basic starting points and some steps to really get into it. The first thing I would probably recommend would be just a bit of an analysis, right? Look at their existing book of business to see where those existing patterns are, to see if they have served a great number of first time buyers. And maybe that's where the riches are in their business. But to just really do some reflection and look at the success they've had. If they're new and just getting started and trying to kind of figure that out, sometimes what I recommend is just maybe their background, what other industry they're coming from, what other experience and expertise they have that they can bring into real estate. But that analysis, that assessment is a really important, I think, first step to really invest further in a specialty. Some other ways to discover that is sometimes suggesting a designation, right? Where maybe there's some additional education or training to really help an agent become, it could be, military certification, it could be serving seniors, but just some additional training might also benefit that process of getting into specializing in a niche and developing the riches there.
Right.
So, with some analysis and some training, those are some great starting points, I think, to really kind of see how to. I always look at it as get off of the roller coaster of income, right? Because agents, you know how it is, Todd, they will have a transaction or two or maybe even three going at once and they're so busy as they should be getting that transaction to successfully close if they get away from the prospecting element to their business as well. And so this process of developing this niche that they can be rich in really helps them get off of that roller coaster because there's more business coming in more consistently based on their specialty.
Right, right. Well, and it's especially helpful, or maybe you and I've talked before about that passion has a certain component in it too. Because if you find yourself, they always say, do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life, right? So if you're finding yourself passionate, loving working on certain types of transactions, there's a natural gravity there to build your expertise and to do more of that. I used to work with a broker. He used to say, when something works, do more of that. If it doesn't work, don't do that anymore. But anyway, keep going. I interrupted you. You're going to say
No,
something.
I was just going to say you become magnetic, right? When
Yeah,
you tap
right,
into those passions.
right.
Part of what I coach agents through is this riches and niches discovery is working with intention, right?
Yeah,
Knowing when perhaps you need to refer some business out because it isn't your area of specialty also encourages referrals coming to you that do speak to your specialty or your niche. So, yeah,
right.
it definitely becomes magnetic. Yeah.
It does become magnetic, and that's where it drives your energy, and it drives the energy that you give off, but it also drives your energy when you wake up every morning. You're like excited, and that's where, just using one segment as an example, first-time homebuyers. There are a lot of first-time homebuyers right now that do need help. They need assistance, they need guidance, and they need somebody to tell them the truth and the facts and maybe not some of the falsities that we read about in the news or in I don't know, social media or things like that. And I think that that's where having a passion for like that segment, it's magnetic. But it also it it it's fun. It's not work when you're doing this out of really trying to serve and help somebody that you have passion about, right? So asking those questions, analysis, we talk about that in our business planning classes, is that asking the questions and looking at the facts, you know, it's that can lead you sometimes in the right direction. So, even taking a look at your database, taking a look at your sphere of influence, if 70% of your sphere of influence, I was talking to a top agent yesterday, specializes in 55 plus communities, meaning communities where you have to be 55 years old or older. And this is a young agent. But he's like, but I'm surrounded in my area by these communities, and I have so many contacts through my parents and through teachers and through mentors and people that I grew up with that when I look at my database, there's this huge segment of my sphere of influence that is that 55 plus. So it was natural for him to gravitate into that 55 plus, area. That doesn't mean that's all he does, but he has a section on his website that is dedicated to answering questions for 55 plus homeowners. He writes a blog geared toward, 55 plus, again, with trying to communicate correct and valid information and to clear up confusion, because sometimes people have inaccuracies about something.
Well, and going back to what you were saying about how rewarding that is too, right? To wake up each day and know you're serving this community of sellers, buyers in this case,
Right,
where they really get to know all that you are familiar with as it relates to those facts
right,
and the information that they're looking for. Because I think part of what happens too, be it in the 55 plus community for first time buyers, it can be overwhelming. All of the information that's out there to try to navigate, what is factual and what is not. So to have this trusted resource in the way of this top agent who is surrounded by these communities, has served them well and done great business there, is both rewarding, but then it's also of service to the community because now they don't have to kind of navigate through all of that uncertainty. They have this trusted resource to go to. I liken that in our market right now, there are some real surges in listings in some communities just based on federal employee layoffs, some other market factors that agents are kind of tapping into in the way of if their specialty is listings and helping sellers, sell their home at or near list price, whatever their marketing might be, whatever their specialty is. There's some great opportunity in some communities where they're relying on the data to focus on serving those communities in those areas because it is such a kind of time sensitive specialty or thing that's happening in our marketplace these days.
right, right. So I know that you give an amazing webinar on, how to, uh, you know, leverage and utilize these niches that you have focused for yourself. So I hear you when we're talking about ask yourself the right questions, analyze your business a little bit, analyze your life, your passions, what you're looking for. Take a look at your sphere of influence, like what percentage of your sphere of influence is a particular type of a buyer. But so now you've identified some different niches, maybe, or maybe one, just one. What do you do from there? What have you seen that really drives success with the
Great question, because I feel like this is where the magic comes in. This is where you take that magnetism and you shine a spotlight on it that really makes it the riches in the niches, right?
right,
And so, be it if there's one niche that you've identified, if there are a few, my preference is that you have a few. Because going back to what you were saying about your passion, right? Very often we have a passion that might be related to real estate, it might be something outside of real estate, but it is something that you could include in your business. So, one of the examples I like to give is that if you work with sellers, as an example, one of the ways you might attract those sellers could be if you have that passion around cooking, if that's the case, where you publish real estate market stats along with recipes, right? These are exclusive recipes. These are dishes that you might serve even during a broker open or an open house, right? In a way that people get to know you.
right,
But to me, one of that way to really make those niches rich is when you layer them. So let's say, as an example, we talked about sellers, and we talked about adding in that specialty around food. Maybe you just enjoy, cooking and sharing recipes. In addition to that, maybe your background is something where, you do have some financials in your work history where you do quite a bit of data analysis, right? So you're putting these layers together, right? Where you're serving sellers who maybe not even just generally food, but they have interest in wine. So that it's more of a wine club thing that you do with sellers. And along with that, you offer them some data around wine available locally, how the properties are selling in your area. You kind of layer all of these different things together and make it into a niche. Another example that I've shared before in some of the webinars and other trainings, Kind of goes back to some of my time in South Florida, where one of the niches that I worked was a specialty where it was vertical, right? So the specialty was waterfront luxury condos, which is a great niche to have an opportunity to serve, but it's also pretty competitive. Lots of real estate professionals would like to work with those sellers or buyers in those buildings, right? So
Right.
one of the things that I did to kind of layer as we were talking about the niche was I specialized in a particular building, and then in that building, if any listings expired, and then within those expired listings, it could be that, just as an example for all of my HomeSmart agents out there, the smarties, maybe I was looking at the smart homes or the smart units in that building, right? So
Right.
now I've layered some niches together in a way that kind of, I won't say eliminates the competition, but it's really hard to outsmart an agent who is specialized solely in that building. I know every floor plan there. I know every model in that builder or developer has offered to the public. And so that deep knowledge and just layering all those things together is where the niches really become rich.
I love that. That's a great example. I know one of our top agents up in Chicago, she specializes in one specific building, and it is a specific building overlooking Lake Michigan. And but she knows that every floor plan, every unit, and she's the expert. And also, she's layered on some of those different layers of many of the people that live in that area, meaning that there's a certain subset of buyers that have a similar makeup that all want to live in that building, and she's become an expert at speaking to those types of customers. So I love the layering aspect. So if I understand you correctly, going back to our 55 plus, agent. So if he's also layering, say, golf expertise, or pickleball, somewhere, or, community, culture type things on top of the 55 plus, and specifically, speaks to that or speaks to that golf community, he's going to attract certain buyers just out of his natural magnetism and passion for golf in a 55 plus community. Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Many of those communities, as you mentioned, the one in Chicago, and even adding the golf to the 55 plus, there's a certain loyalty that comes with some of those
Right.
activities, some of those locations. There's a certain familiarity. There are just certain things that when you really add in that cultural part, the social part to the real estate, to the properties as well, it just is a game changer, I think, for many agents. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I was talking with another agent recently who was specializing, candidly, in Canadian buyers, and she was actually kind of trying to retire, but she has such a sphere of influence. And what happened was, she was helping one Canadian buyer, then another Canadian buyer, and another Canadian buyer, because she lived in Canada for a while herself, and but now she's here in the States. And then it just snowballs, because that one buyer tells 10 other people up in Canada, and four of them want to buy, and then that just those four tell 10 more, and they have four that want to buy. It's just, it creates this momentum and this expertise as well, that is really benefiting those customers, but it's also creating demand at the same time for what you're doing. So it's a
Absolutely.
kind of a
And I
win-win.
think one of the things that we may not consider as often in the world of real estate, but referrals can be a niche within themselves,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So as an agent has, spent years or a decade or longer in their business and attracted all of these particular buyers, even if they're, kind of handing off that business or referring that business consistently, it's an income opportunity. It's a niche within itself. So
Right.
that's great to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. So what other types of things do you talk about in your class or in your webinar that you know that agents should implement?
Well, typically the homework, I like to give out homework because I love to give some practical tips in a session that agents can take with them and apply right away in their business. And so one of the homework assignments, because often an agent will sometimes be a bit reluctant in identifying a niche because they have this perception that maybe it means they're going to exclude some opportunities or that there's some business that they wouldn't get if they had to focus or narrow down.
Right.
So one of the homework assignments I typically give is to ask an agent to Google themselves. It's a two-part homework assignment. I ask them to do it on a mobile device on their phone, conveniently, like many, prospective clients might, but also on a computer, because sometimes you get a different response depending on where you're searching. But I ask them to Google themselves, maybe adding real estate, maybe adding their city name, whatever they need to do to take a look at what their perceived niche might be. Because if someone were to Google you, because people are doing their due diligence, when they're looking to hire a real estate professional, someone Googles you and they see, a number of reviews where you worked with buyers, or they see these buyers offering reviews, they can see that that is something that you specialize in. They can see that you have some past performance in that area. So
Right.
that's definitely, I think, helpful in this process is along with doing that analysis, doing just a quick Google search to see what everybody else might think your niche is.
Right. Right. That's a great idea. Okay, so everyone listening, that's your homework assignment. Go Google yourself, just like what Nishika said, and then once you do that, and now you have the information back, you've kind of, what do you do with that?
It's a good question too, because sometimes what you discover isn't necessarily in line with your goals, right? You might find that certainly you've been successful in working with a great number of buyers, and so you have some great reviews out there around that, but you want to get into listing more properties. You want to work with sellers more often. So how do you kind of overcome that, or what would the next step be? And my advice is always to, once you've done that analysis and kind of committed to a niche, or if we discussed, Todd, layered some niches, right?
Right. Right.
Combined your passion and also some real estate. I think the goal at that point is to produce content, is to make it so that whatever it is that your goal is, whatever that niche is that you're building or investing in, it comes towards the top of those search results, right? So that more and more often folks come to know you for not only the business that you've done, but what it is that you look to accomplish. So in that example where maybe you have a bunch of reviews from buyers, but you want to work with more sellers, it could be now that you are posting more blog articles for sellers about, how to best prepare your home to go on the market, or just content that speaks to that niche that you want to build more into.
Yes. And that's a key point that all of you listening, our actions um, energize and dictate our future. Meaning that if we want to be known as a 55 plus expert, that also expert in golf, we have to do something to make sure that that's how we are perceived when that Google search comes up, right? So we you have some homework to do after the homework assignment. You need to go create your own future, what you want the consumer to see. If it's not there already, then you need to go create it and go create that content and work on it and focus on it. I know of an agent the other day that I was talking to about reviews, and they were talking specifically about getting reviews in a certain niche because that's where they want their business to go, right? So they did that through reviews because reviews are probably the most heavily weighted thing by both Google profiles and by some of the other algorithms that we know about. So great example.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, as you're developing this content, as you're investing in your niche, one thing you want to be sure to do, just because you want to leverage your resources in an effective manner, is you want to do so in a way where those prospective clients are hanging out, right?
Yep.
So going back to that 55 plus example, I'm just we're having a conversation here, so I don't know that this is
Sure.
true or not, but you may
Right.
not need to be on TikTok if
Right.
if your niche is going to be 55 plus.
Right.
So really take into account when you're doing that analysis how best to reach
Right.
those prospects too. Yeah.
Right. Well, I love this whole concept and I love you sharing your insights. Are there any other insights really that you want to share on this topic? Like if we had a room full of agents, that you would like them to know and to take action on.
If there were a room full of agents, some of what I would encourage us to be doing is to work on it together. We would actually pause and take out a little sheet of paper and kind of write this out so that this isn't just a conversation, so that it moves forward and that you take action, as you stated, Todd, and
Right.
drive this forward in your business because it really is an opportunity, I think. So many of you, work really hard, you do great work, and you're successful. But for me, it's getting you all to really understand the riches that are in niches. Doesn't mean you exclude business. It doesn't mean, you aren't able to do some things outside of that specialty. But I would just be encouraging everyone to take that action and to commit to a niche. And most importantly of all, if I could kind of reiterate, layering those niches because there will still be a great number of agents who, going back to your example, Todd, may specialize in 55 plus communities. But when you added on that layer of golf to
Mhm.
it, it really kind of helped narrow down some of that competition.
Right.
And if you, added another layer from to that, maybe it is 55 plus uh, golf in a single family residence that has some special feature to it, right? That has a home office for those who are working from home. So
Right.
even as it relates to the properties, you can add layers to your niche.
Yep.
So that would be the other part of it. Take action and layer your niches for sure.
Well, as great examples, I know of two agents that specialize in two different layers, so like one specializes in young families and first-time homebuyers, right? But they also specialize in nursing and in healthcare. And like, so what their goal is, how do I help more nurses um, buy their first home or nurses with young families? And so it's like, I've never really articulated that before or connected the dots that you today on this uh, episode, has helped me. She's layering because it's not just first time homebuyers, but it's first time homebuyers and nurses who she knows, and I also know someone who's doing it with teachers, who actually teachers and first time for responders, first responders, meaning that there's a certain level of community service and things that go along. But this one agent that I know, like I said, specializing first time buyers, but also teachers then. And those are like layers, two different layers. So I love that concept and thanks for helping me connect the dots on that too.
For sure. And I could add one of the beautiful things about those layers is that it's often an opportunity to bring in maybe a smart partner or someone else that you work with. It could be a lender who has special products for
Right.
that clientele, right? There
Correct.
are different loans specifically available to teachers or nurses. HUD
Right.
has a good neighbor next door program that's only available to first responders, police officers, teachers. So having those layers, having that specialty really helps you to bring in the other resources that help to make a successful transaction too.
I love that. Wow, there's been a wealth of knowledge right here in the last just couple minutes. So everyone absorb that and then go put to use in your business. All right, I love stories, and the podcast, is kind of about stories. Can you tell us a story about an agent you've observed, maybe come to one of your seminars, and then implement some of what you're talking about? Or maybe they circled back with you later with a big thank you note. Thank you. This is what I heard. This is what I did. You have any stories like that, not to put you on the spot, but
Yeah, no, I do. I feel so honored that I'm able to keep in touch with agents, over the years and even longer. And so, but even more recently, after I did this presentation at Grow Summit, it must have been 2024, I suppose. Yeah, we haven't had our Grow Summit this year yet.
Right.
But I did this as a breakout session, Growth Summit in 2024. I got some great messages and feedback from agents after the session that DM'd me and told me how they had implemented, certain elements of the workshop and how it's been successful in their business. But one that really stands out to me, and they all are great, but one that really stands out is an agent whose specialty is around probate. And so, as part of that process, his layer with the niche was around helping the homeowners with the contents of the property. So there could be, different collectibles. It could be different, items at the property as part of this probate sale that he helped them to navigate as part of a niche. And so that additional service as part of his specialty has become his expertise, and he's done even more business based off of that. And so
That's
just
great.
exciting to hear, when agents take action and when it's successful for sure.
That's a great example. That's a great example. Because especially with probate or with estate type issues, that extra layer of expertise, that can be, that's the difference. That's what will get you chosen and what will differentiate you from other people, like knowing what to do with a coin collection, a stamp collection, um, you know, uh, other collectibles, furniture, some of those things. So um, wonderful. That's a great example. Well,
Hmm.
I really appreciate you being here today on the Real Estate Podcast. One question that I, often ask um, guests, and it's more of, what do you think, with your observing top agents around, the country, what's something that oftentimes agents wish they would have been told early on in their career or learned early on in their career that, when you interview them later in life? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I think it's a common thread, but I hope that if this reaches one agent and that it changes your business, then it'll be worth repeating it, because I feel like you all have probably heard this before. But most often I hear a regret around not taking their database more seriously early on and investing in that. I think sometimes agents get a little, maybe the word is overwhelmed by the technology, like which CRM or what CRM is everybody else using, versus even if your database is a spreadsheet, if you have an organized way in which to reach out to people, to stay in touch, to follow your phone contacts. I know, Todd, this has been part of a number of the trainings that you've offered as well, too, around databases. But I think that's the thing I still hear most often, is that folks looking back at their career, and it could be,
Right,
5, 10, or more years back, that they wish that they had um, been more serious and committed to their database. Yeah.
right, right. Well, that's some great insight from someone like you. So wonderful. Thank you for being here on today's episode. Any parting thoughts, as we wrap it up here?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me. I appreciate this opportunity, for getting a chance to join the podcast for sure. The only parting thought I might have is that it's never too late to determine a niche. I feel like for some agents, if you've been in the business for some years and successful, and I'm one of the first, everybody will tell you to say, if it's not broke, we're not going to try to fix it. So if you're seeing great success and you don't feel like you have a niche or a specialty, and that's working for you, great. We don't want to try to interrupt that in any way. But for others who feel like they're kind of trying to still figure their way out in the business, just know that it's never too late to develop a niche and a specialty. And even if you have one, to add a layer to it, right? You might have this specialty or this niche, but now's the time to kind of reignite it by adding another layer or two to it. So
Right.
it's never too late. That's just what I wanted to add.
That's a great message and a great way to end the podcast. So, Nishika Green, you're amazing. I appreciate you. I know all of your agents that you serve on the East Coast appreciate you too. Thank you for being here on this episode of the Real Estate Podcast. To all of you listeners, we'll see you back on future episodes, and we hope you take what you learned today and here today and then apply it to your business, and let's go serve and help more buyers and home sellers. So thank you all. We'll see you back on future episodes. This has been the Real Estate Podcast, and I'm Todd Sumney. I'll see you. Bye.
Like what you're hearing on The Real Estate? Tell your friends about us. Tell them to check out all of our episodes on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. And don't forget to send any topics you want us to tackle to therealestate@homesmart.com.